മോനിപ്പള്ളി അതുപോലെ ഭരണങ്ങാനം തലയോല പ്രവർത്തന കേരളത്തിലെ വിവിധ ആശുപത്രികളിലെ ഡയാലിസിസ് മെഷീൻ ഞങ്ങൾ ഇവിടുന്ന് റോട്ടറി ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ ഹെൽപ്പോടുകൂടി സംഭാവനയായി ഡൊണേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന പേഷ്യൻസിന് ഫ്രീ ആയിട്ട് കൊടുക്കും. ആരെങ്കിലും നിങ്ങളോട് നാട്ടിൽ ഹെൽപ്പിന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഞങ്ങളെ ഒന്ന് അറിയിച്ചാൽ മതി. ആ സൗജന്യം നമുക്ക് പ്രയോജനപ്പെടുത്താം. ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി എല്ലാവരെയും സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ പ്രസിഡന്റ് അഡ്രസ്സിനായി തമ്പിയെ ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു.
Hi everybody. You guys know me, Thambi with Telecast. You know, many of you know I have 3 daughters that are currently studying in college. Right? Many of you know that. And you know, my first one went to college about 5 years ago. 5 വർഷം മുമ്പ് എൻ്റെ ആദ്യത്തെ മോള് കോളേജിൽ പോയി. ആ സമയത്ത് ആദ്യത്തെ കൊച്ചായതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ ഈ കോളേജിൻ്റെ അഡ്മിഷൻ പ്രോസസ്സും അക്സെപ്റ്റൻസ് പ്രോസസ്സിനെ പറ്റി ഒന്നും നല്ല ഫെമിലിയാരിറ്റി ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു. എപ്പോൾ ACT എടുക്കണം, എപ്പോൾ SAT എടുക്കണം, എപ്പം വോളണ്ടിയർ സർവീസുകളൊക്കെ ചെയ്യണം, ആപ്ലിക്കേഷൻ പ്രോസസ്സൊക്കെ എപ്പോഴും ഡെഡ് ലൈൻ ആയിരുന്നു. ഒത്തിരി ഒരു സ്ട്രെസ്ഫുൾ ടൈമായിരുന്നു ആദ്യത്തെ കൊച്ചിന് പോകാൻ നേരത്തെ. അപ്പം I remember spending like many hours in the computer with Angela, trying to figure out, okay, these are the colleges that we may want to go. What is the admission requirements? What's the minimum ACT requirement? What's the minimum SAT? Is it ACT or SAT? Do they give scholarships? How much is going to cost to go to a college? അതൊക്കെ ഭയങ്കര ഒരു സ്ട്രെസ്ഫുൾ സിറ്റുവേഷൻ ആയിരുന്നു. I remember the first one. അത് പിന്നെ ഒരു ഭയങ്കരമൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടാക്കി ഓർഗനൈസ് ചെയ്ത് തല്ലിക്കൂട്ടി സംഭവം പറഞ്ഞു വിട്ടു എന്നാണ് പറയാം. നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷയുടെ കൊച്ചുങ്ങൾ എപ്പോഴും they are like always the guinea pigs, right? We call them, right? Yeah, you learn from them. Obviously the second and the third one was much more easier. അപ്പൊ എന്റെ മനസ്സിലിങ്ങനെ another thing is, I don't know if you know, obviously I have 3 girls in college. I know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of expense. Okay, this is probably the number 2 expense after your house. Like when we talk about the payments that we make every day, obviously our house we make a large payment. College education is going to be the second highest expense that you're going to pay. That's how expensive it is. So when I heard that Heidi is giving talks at other Rotary clubs, about college admission process, and I think there are some changes due to the pandemic situation. I heard that she's giving talks. She's a national expert in the college admission process. She works for a company called the College Inside Track, and she gives talks nationally at a national level. And I heard that she's giving talks to the Rotary clubs. I thought, why not? We have a lot of parents that are here of high school kids, and maybe you can learn something from it, And another thing about Heidi is that she also has 2 kids that went through college, so she has practical experience in putting kids through college and going through the whole process also. And I really like that. I think that if you go through and have practical knowledge of sending your own kid, live stream on this one, and that's part of the reason we're doing this. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Heidi to this talk. I hope you listen and learn something. Hopefully save some money.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much, Joseph. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for spending part of your Sunday with me today. It's you have a lovely church here and sanctuary, so thank you so much. It's lovely to see everybody in their community having some fellowship afterwards too. So thank you for coming in. So my name is Heidi King, and I am education partner at College Inside Track. And we have been working in the college space for the better part of 16 years. But today, I'm going to help you guys and educate you a little bit about modern and current college process, right? Because maybe not all of us actually went to school in the US. So how many of us would have their children be actually first generation in the United States? Right, a considerable amount, right? So I'm really here to help you as your resource. Ask me questions today, okay? I'm gonna explain to you kind of how the application process works. We're gonna talk a little bit in the beginning about how much college costs in our area. And then I'll go through options getting scholarships, need-based versus merit-based, and how some of that works, okay? So we'll have the opportunity to kind of have some 3 different times where we're gonna have question and answers here too, okay? And so please, thank you so much again. I'm really excited to be doing this. So again, I work for a company as the education expert. And I do nationwide teaching to financial advisors, helping them with college process for their clients. That's half of my job. And so I did a lecture at the Illinois Financial Planners Association, South Carolina, their Financial Planning Association. I'm going to Utah, and I even get to go to Southern California in about 3 weeks to do that. So I help them learn about college education so they can help their clients do that. Plan better, afford it, right? Go and choose the right ones for whatever your child wants to learn about. Now, when I'm in my own community and I live nearby, I live in a town called Wheaton, Illinois. I grew up here all my life. My kids went to Glenbard West, and now they are both off studying business. One is at Indiana University, and the other one is at Illinois Wesleyan. So one is at a Big Ten school, right? And then another one is at a much smaller school. And it's because they really had different needs for what type of learner they were, where they were going to excel. Were they going to get in a big classroom, right, with all sorts of people, or did they not learn well with that many kids? So we took a lot of time to tour, and we're going to talk to you guys about that today, what that process could look like for you guys. But when I help people, the biggest thing that we think about is how do we find these schools, right? How do we think about the schools that are going to be the best fit? So best fit is 3 things: best academic fit, best social fit, and best financial fit. Because it has to be the right academic fit for your student, right? Does it have the right major? Do you know what your major is? Right? Engineering, pre-med, those are the majors that have the biggest transfer rate out of them, right? We need to make sure the school teaches in the way that we learn, right? Do we need a larger classroom environment? Or do we maybe need something a little bit smaller where you're going to have a personal connection with the teachers and the professors earlier? Social fit, that's what the kids like to talk about, that vibe. Does it have the right campus vibe? Right? Do they need to find their people on campus for them to feel comfortable and want to stay. Transferring is a big deal if your family member is unhappy. So most often when we work with the kids, right, they want to learn about, does it have football? Does it have basketball? Does it have something that I'm going to connect with socially? Right? We work really hard making sure if it's a big school or a small school that we unpack that with them. But it's great if the academic fit is there. It's great if the social fit is there. But if they are choosing colleges that in the end, we as parents do not want to plan to pay for, can't do that, right? We have to find schools that are going to align with all of those. Because then you don't want the dream school to be the nightmare school after graduation because we're taking on so many loans, right? So we work on that atmosphere. And so how many of you actually have high schoolers right now? Yeah, a large portion, right? So this is for you, right? This is exactly where you need to talk about a little bit more in the process and get some guidance here. And that's hopefully, I aim to do that today for sure. So when we think about college search, it can be, we liken that to like the opportunity of working on your own car, right? Back 30 years ago, that might have been something you did, right? You had the right tools, you had the knowledge, and it was familiar enough that perhaps you did work on your own car on your own. Anymore, nobody is working on their own car, right? It's just very confusing underneath that hood, right? The whole application process, acceptance process has changed so much. It's very relatable to working on your own car and how we no longer have the tools to do that. So I'm going to take a little quiz here. We have two little quizzes that we're going to talk to people about. What percentage of students do you think transfer at least one time? And that is considering not community college going up, but that is four-year university to four-year university. What do you think that national transfer rate is? 6%? 38%? So it is. It's 38%. That national transfer rate sitting at 38% means that 4 out of 10 kids are going off to college and they're miserable. They're calling their parents sad or stressed and not fitting in. So you can imagine being the parent of somebody calling you that upset, right? And that matters from their mental health. But here's another reason why this matters. It's because if you're having to transfer schools at that great amount, it's actually costing us as parents or as the student significantly more money. That average transfer rate costs $14,000 for one transfer. And we come up with that because why? Well, because quite often your credits won't transfer, right? Maybe the grade wasn't good enough, so the school that you're going to go to, that those classes won't transfer. But also, if they're taking 5 or 6 years to go through college, they're not working. So that's how we come up with those numbers. And if you're having to transfer that one time, 38% are transferring one time, 45% are transferring a second time. And the reason that is because sometimes they're transferring as a junior. After they've come home, they're taking a reset, they get back onto campus, and the friend groups have already been established, right? They're in as a junior, everybody else is a little bit younger, so it's hard then to fit in, you know? So that's why finding that right fit that first time is so important from an emotional standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint as well. Here is another reason why this matters. Because this is a slide that I updated just about a month ago. And that is for 1 year of school. So no wonder that we're worried about finding the right fit the first time if you're having to pay, on average, $50,000 for a school. Northwestern, at $87,000, I mean, we all know it's expensive, right? But that's 1 year. 1 year. Now, when I meet with families, and I meet with families, that's the other half of my job, right? As I talk to families and I help answer their questions and make sure that they have right process, that they understand how to go about this for themselves uniquely and their kids. And these are typical schools that families in Illinois want to go to. If we don't stay locally, and these are some local schools at the bottom, haven't met a kid yet that doesn't want to go to Boulder. Everybody wants to investigate California, New York, the coast, Colorado. I don't know if anybody is American football fans, but Clemson was a big deal. A lot of people want to go to the southeast and get out of our cold. So quite often I hear about Clemson too. But I was a University of Illinois grad back in the day, and I cannot believe that my state school costs nearly $40,000 a year to go to school. So I don't think $160,000 is a bargain for college. That's in-state. And at least us think that some of the other schools would be more of a bargain. Illinois State is basically the same amount at $32,000. And the reason that I have that broken out for U of I in Champaign-Urbana, and truly many schools are like this, for sure NYU is also, different majors, different amounts. It's kind of getting on that airplane. Everything's a la carte these days, right? You want to bring something else to the table, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. A business degree, a couple $1,000s more. Engineering degree, potentially even more expensive, just because of what is required in the classroom, right? So community colleges can be a great option for us. There are some pitfalls to that. Quite often you just need to make sure, are those classes transferable to the intended four-year university? To figure that out, call admissions at the community colleges. Also know, for those community colleges, it's best to stay in your district, you know, DuPage County, in your county, because it just ends up being a little bit more valuable and less expensive than if you're going to go to a different county for those. So does anybody have any questions? Oh, the one thing that I wanted to point out too is I have Dayton kind of out of order. And I think I was talking to Joe. Joe's kids were at SLU, right? Isn't that where your kids are, at St. Louis? So some of these schools, Dayton is in that same grouping of schools, right? Where the sticker price of those schools looks really, really high, $62,000. But from a scholarship and a value standpoint, do not think of that as a super expensive school, because typically their scholarship packages are well over $20,000 per year. So some of these private schools seem a little expensive, but they're actually far more flexibly priced than a school like the University of Illinois. A school like the University of Illinois, you're not going to get many discounts because they already find themselves of value. But some of the private schools, for sure, do a much better job of some of those scholarships, and you can negotiate with them a little bit better too. Take one college against the other and see if they'll match the merit money. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those strategies also. So, what percentage has tuition increased since 1990? $180, I heard. 106. So like so many things that have gone up in price, college has really gone up in price. That public tuition rate since 1990 has gone up 213%, far outpacing many of the industries that we think of, you know. So it is really true. College is costing us more money. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But, you know, as far as planning and affording it, it is more expensive for our families these days, for sure. And that's the public schools. Private schools have increased 415%. Notable increases also, when I work with families, many people talk about local schools, right? Our pricing in the Midwest even outpaces those eyeball-popping numbers of the other slide, right? University of Illinois, up 531%. Madison is up over 1,000%. And I'm not picking on the Midwest, because if you want to go to UConn out in Connecticut, it's up over 1,300%. So truly, thinking about those first slides, the transfer rate and how much it costs to go to school, it's really important for us to help our kids find those right fit the first time, right? Right academic fit, right social fit, and right financial fit from your family. Now, I'm going to unpack a bunch of tips. We're going to talk about the FAFSA and talk about like merit aid and need aid. But does anybody have any questions so far on some of the pricing for schools, or any questions so far? Yeah. So that price, the high 80,000, 7,000, that was actually room and board, travel expenses. That would be what the university would think the meal plan, everything would cost. Yeah, yeah. Tuition is room and board usually ends up being about $13,000 to $20,000. The rest is tuition, typically. And they throw in like transportation too. Like, so for my son at IU, they give us a certain ballpark number that says you're going to go back and forth a couple of times, and then they loop that in for the pricing. Any other questions? Okay. All right, here's where it gets interesting. Families, when they're planning for college, right, they need to figure out how to pay for it. Sometimes people have saved, which is awesome. But basically, the assistance that we're thinking of comes in two different ways. Okay, so if you have saved it, we've got that. But otherwise, people are looking for how to make and how to plan for paying for college. That breaks up into two different categories. Need-based, which is pretty much 100% based on the AGI or your income of the family. But merit-based has nothing to do with how much money you've made, right? So we think of that as being strategic. If college should be less expensive, and we're trying to all achieve to not overpay for college, what we're really trying to do is figure out colleges that will give our students, our kids, money for the awesome things that they have done and how hard they've worked, right? So the forms that we have to think about when we're applying to college, these are the federal loan forms and the Fafsa form. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The one that we're most familiar with is the Fafsa. Now, if you have a senior right now, is anybody knowing about the Fafsa? Have you guys filled that out yet, that federal form? Okay, so, right, you and I have done this again and again. So the Fafsa is the first level loan to fill out. It is the free application for federal student aid. It is now a graduation requirement. That may have changed. If you're a senior and you're going to graduate from a public high school, it's a graduation requirement in the state of Illinois. Okay, so that's going to be the most familiar with, and I'm going to talk a lot about that form today. The other form that we have to fill out occasionally, if you're going to a highly selective school, they're going to want an additional layer form, and that's called the Css Profile. That's just the college scholarship selection. It is a more complicated form, more layers, right? Because they're really trying to figure out where the needs should go most granularly. So today I'm going to focus on the Fafsa because that's what we're doing for our students for grad requirement, okay? But either way, when you fill out those forms, both of those forms will work out a formula that results in a student aid report to give you a EFC number, or expected family contribution, but that nomenclature is changing because the FAFSA is being simplified. So the output of the FAFSA will give you a number that the colleges use to determine how much you're going to pay. That is called the Student Aid Index, or SAI. Okay? Now, the colleges use that, as does the government, to determine where that loan amount is for us. The FAFSA. Okay, we're gonna spend probably 10 minutes here talking about the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the first level layer student loan that you can get. It is filling out this form gives you the opportunity to get the loan. Everybody can get the loan, regardless of your income, right? And that's why I think the state of Illinois is having us do that. It is a great loan in terms of it has a very low origination fee, so it doesn't cost much to apply for it. And the interest rate is low compared to private space loans. When we're hearing about all these loans, we're all hearing about all these loans, right? In the media, right? People are talking about people taking on too many loans. Loans are expensive. This is the best first loan that you can take. And it's the only loan the student owns by themselves without mom and dad co-signing. So it's actually not a bad loan, though. I had both of my boys take this out. And it's because I was a little worried that they were viewing college as the next level social environment. right? I mean, it's all well and fun to be going to college, you know, but I needed them to have a little bit of ownership in paying for school. Because I love that they're so social and they have all those friends, but I just don't want them to, it's just not the next level party, right? It's just not. So people view this differently, but this is a very good introductory loan if you need that first level of ownership in the process for the kids. Go ahead. Say it again. The first year, did you say how much is it? Limits, yes. So there are limits to this loan. It is $5,500 your freshman year, $6,500 your sophomore year, and $7,500 your junior and your senior year. I'll do the math, $27,000. That's like, what? That means from that federal loan, that's all that they give you, which anymore hardly covers a year. And you can't all get it at once. And you can't get it from the year behind you. So literally, you have to apply for this every year. You will never be turned down for it. But you have to kind of plan this in to how you are paying for school. So does that make sense for everybody? I mean, in terms of, you know, again, I'm going to talk a lot about the FAFSA. A 529? So the 529s are not considered here for FAFSA purposes. We will talk about the 529, and a 529 is a savings vehicle that sometimes people have saved for college in that. You put money in, you get a taxed incentive from the state of Illinois to do that, and then your money grows tax-free. So people are paying for college in two different ways, saving for college in two different ways. It's via the loan and sometimes via savings. So this loan, this FAFSA loan, the application starts your senior year of high school. October 1st is the first date. I promise you that website does not run fast on that first date. So don't worry. You don't have to do it the first day. But you need to do it pretty quickly because merit money is given by the colleges first come, first serve. So the loan will never be denied to you. But the merit money, like if you're applying for a school, the sooner you get this in, so people often want to think about this and doing that first month, filling it out in October. The loan is owned by the student. So their information goes on part of the loan. They have a student ID. And if they don't have their own Gmail account or an iCloud, make sure this is when they start, right? Because we wouldn't want any of this information to go to whatever school, right? So it's really important. And then the parents have their own ID, and this is very confusing. But it is because you guys have financial information that you don't necessarily want your kids to know about, right? Those are just more personal, business-related things. But the result of the form will go to the kids. Yeah. So the majority of whether or not you'll get need-based or not is 47% based on your AGI from your taxes. So if you think about it in round numbers, you take your taxes, what you had last year, and about 50%, that's whether or not you're going to be need-based or not. 47% is the specific number. And that's how the federal government and the colleges determine if you're going to get need-based money. Right. So what she's saying is that the FAFSA will give you $5,500 automatically. This is how it kind of works out. Depending on your income, you will sometimes get a subsidized loan. That subsidized loan is never the full amount. So if you have your income below about $235,000 AGI, is when quite often you'll find yourselves getting subsidized loans from the colleges. And these are ballpark numbers. It really depends on the colleges themselves, but these are just kind of good round numbers for you guys, right? So, and we're going to go into that a little bit more. The reason why...
This is the only loan parents are not liable. All the other loans parents are liable for it.
So this is the only loan that the student owns on their own. Everything else, the parent has to co-sign and are consequently liable for. So you're in charge of that difference. And that is because your student has no credit. So you may intend on them to have that loan, right? But it is in the essence your responsibility if something goes wrong, right? So, but I don't want everybody to think of this as being a bad loan, right? I mean, again, that's why we're educating people, is that if college hasn't been saved for $50,000 a year, right? And how many people have done that, right? It's really hard. You have multiple kids. So most of us are having to figure out a way to pay for the difference between what we have saved and what the college costs, right? So this is a very good first loan. Now, filling it out also unlocks scholarship. Only 2% of the population gets a federal Pell Grant. The rest of us are filling this out because we are hoping the colleges themselves will give us merit money. And so this is the process to unlock that, especially that first year. Okay, they give us an additional layer at the college. How does that happen? It's because when you fill out the FAFSA, your child is going to put their first 10 schools that they want to go to on that list. So they're going to say St. Louis University. They're going to say University of Illinois. They're going to say Iowa. Maybe they'll say Princeton. Maybe they'll say Illinois Wesleyan, where my other son goes, right? And then the output of the FAFSA is sent to those colleges themselves. And then they determine how much need you're going to get. And most colleges will only give you 50%. Now, believe it or not, Northwestern is a very good gift giver. So some of those selective schools, they are upwards of 90%, 95% meets need, right? So that's why some of those schools are extremely appealing, also the Ivy Leagues. Please know that those acceptance rates are below 5% at a lot of those schools. So anymore, those are not even wild card schools. They're not even reach schools. They're just wild cards. So we always want to have these students have a balanced list. So we make sure the financial numbers are good at the end, right? We make sure their acceptance is going to be more yeses than nos. Any questions about the FAFSA? I'm going to talk about how it's used by the colleges still too. Go ahead. Okay, did you hear what he said? Okay. I'm just going to come closer. Yes. Yep. So you have to do it every year because your income changes every year. So you could find yourself just with more or less income one year to the next. And your kids too, right? Because maybe they'll take on a summer job. Maybe 1 year, like as the kids get older, they end up usually just making more money. So that's why you have to fill it out every year. You have to fill it out every year till when they're juniors.
My one daughter had said something about FAFSA related to her ability to get campus jobs. Do
Yes.
you know about
Yep.
that? Okay.
Yep. So the filling out the FAFSA also unlocks work study. And that's really a pretty good job on campus. But I've never seen a campus yet that didn't know or didn't have job opportunities for kids. So truly, it unlocks some jobs that are university, handed out. But if your child would like to work on campus, or that's part of the plan to pay for college is that they're asked to work, there's always a job at like Chick-fil-A or Jimmy John's or the bookstore. There's always a pizza place that needs somebody, for sure. I was a DJ at a bar. That's what I did at U of I. So that was my Friday night. I did that. So does anybody have any questions, though, on the FAFSA? Say it again. Is there what? And no?
If the student get a job within the university, does the university contribute to any money towards the tuition?
Yes, so that is whether or not, so he asked the question of how does the university contribute and how do they hand out either need or how do they hand out scholarships? And that's a good question, right? Because that's kind of what we're trying to figure out. Bottom line is, what are these going to cost? So yes, by filling this out, they determine at the end your student aid index. And then they take that amount and they say, how much do we cost sticker price? What is our student aid index? And that gap is what they are trying to fill for you. But that gap, remember, is only filled often 50%. So let's say you're at Northwestern for 80. And let's say your student aid index leaves you at 50. So you have a $30,000 gap, right? The schools will think of 15,000 as being your need because they're only going to cover 50% unless it's Northwestern, in which case Northwestern will cover more. But if it's U of I or Indiana or Clemson or Marquette, I think Marquette actually does a little bit better job. They're only going to cover 15,000. And of that 15,000, for sure, the first money they give you is the federal loan. That's their merit package. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think of a loan that I have to pay back as merit. So it's a little frustrating to think of, like, I'm still, now I'm not saying it's a bad loan. I am saying it's frustrating for us to think of merit as being a loan that we have to pay back. But that's what the schools do. So at this point, it's not a use to be angry about it. We just have to know the current landscape so we can plan for it. So what are the biggest influencers of financial aid? Easily, it's the parents' income, 47%. Other things matter. Parents' assets and income matter. Student, whether or not they worked, mattered. And the students' bank accounts, those matter. But you're really, if you just think about it in terms of like a highlightable, you're either going to be need-based or not based on the parents' income. If a student earns money, $7,000 of those first wages are allowance for earnings allowance protected, meaning they're not considered in the formula. And my kids were really worried about that. They're like, are you kidding me? So I work a job and I'm going to be negatively assessed for that. No, it's okay. $7,000. I don't know about you guys, but my child is not making more than $7,000 in a summer mowing lawns. So it's pretty still really helpful for those kids to have a job. Now, parents' bank account is assessed, and they're 529s, which we talked about that. So that's 5.64%. So if you have a 529, which is a savings vehicle, Illinois Bright Start, this is a really good way to do it, especially if you have younger kids or you've worked your way up in terms of savings every year for this, because it has grown tax-free for hopefully years, right? But when you pull it out, it is assessed at 5.64%. So not at income, not at 47%, just at savings, right? Your assets. So people get a little worried about that. Again, and see, what we're looking at is we're trying to figure out, are we going to be need-based or not? That's what that's what we're trying to figure out is, are we going to be need-based or not? Truly, if you're going to be need-based or not, usually somewhere between around $235,000 AGI to $280,000. If you're below that at some of the schools, that's just a really good ballpark. If anybody has like questions about this, from a individual level, I'm more than happy to do a FAFSA forecast for you, and we can talk about, are we going to be need-based or not? And really, that depends on what school you're going to be. Obviously, like a higher price school, you're going to be just more need-based. The most common thing that we see people making mistakes on this form, 25% of these forms are filled out in error, right? You don't even get a report back, or you get the wrong number back. Is that people are including the wrong information. You do not include your house, the value of your house. Nothing about your primary house should be on there. But if you have rental income, then for another home or something that you own, that does need to be included. The value of that property needs to be included. Now, many of us have a pension or a 401k. That also should not be included. Those are the single biggest mistakes that we see, is incorrect assets being layered onto that FAFSA form. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the FAFSA? I'm still going to talk a lot about need and merit and all that stuff, but any questions about the FAFSA form that I can help with? Okay. Which either means I did a pretty good job explaining it, or it's just utterly confusing. I'm not sure which that is. The good news is this form is going to be simplified next year. Huge pandemic relief bill and a lot of process help with this form. It's going to go from 170 questions to 40, right? So much better. So how is this FAFSA used? The output of that FAFSA, again, it really comes down to, because they want to make this formula seem like it's like the secret sauce in the Big Mac, you know, and they don't publish it, so it is secret. But it's really kind of plain in terms of what it's generically intended to do. Sticker price of the school, minus that student aid index, gives you your potential need. And just as a review, typically colleges are only going to give you, so you're going to get that student aid report back, and you're going to see some number on it that says 30, 50, 70, whatever it is. You pretty much half that. And that's kind of what you should be expecting from the schools. And then they determine what they're going to gift to you guys. Okay, I'm going to have 4 slides of tips, because I really want us to do a better job and understand a little bit more about college process, okay? So are we going to be need-based or not? If you are going to be need-based by some of those numbers that I gave you, you can be savvy and trying to stay more need-based. But depending on if you're a high-wage earner, it's not going to be need. It's going to be via merit, and we'll talk about that next. So that student assets, so their bank accounts, are assessed 4 times higher than the parents. So if you find yourself as in that wages of $235 or below, these are the tips that you're thinking about, okay? Parents' assets are just assessed lower. 529s are held in ownership of the parent as the beneficiary for the child. So they're assessed lower. That's a good thing. An UGMA and an UTMA is a uniform gift to minor. It's basically a savings account. If you have Citibank or BMO or whatever your bank is, just call your banker to see. That savings account has to be reported for the FAFSA. And as we said, do not include the 401ks, your pension. That's considered a qualified retirement account, does not get assessed. And that's the good news, is because a lot of us have our savings, our retirement savings in those accounts. Okay, any questions about the formula and any of that need-based assistance? Yeah, so your kids may have bank accounts. Those bank accounts are considered savings accounts. They are also referred to as UGMAs and UTMAs. And those are just Uniform Gifts to Minor Act, is how they are labeled by the government. So you've opened up a savings account, and they have an overarching name for them. And quite often, it is funded in one of those names or columns. That is assessed higher, So their bank account may be assessed higher, well, it is assessed higher than the parents. So if they have a lot of money in there, and I guess a lot depends on your own circumstances. But so my son has saved and saved and saved and saved, and so he's got over $7,000 in that bank account. So that's assessed higher for him than it is for, he mowed a lot of lawns over the course of his life. So he's ready, you know, to kind of pay for this and take some of this on. But when we come to filling out this form, you guys can read in between the lines. Do you need to be strategic about moving that or not, taking it out or not? I'm not a financial advisor, and so I don't necessarily, you know, I don't know how much you guys want to go through the process to save yourself. But it is assessed higher. And again, are you need-based or not? Are we at that $235,000 or around there? And that's how you think about it.
It's better if kids have a lot of saving. It's better to put the money in the 529 plan so they don't have to, they can avoid that situation, right?
I mean, overarching, the 529 plans, if you've done it for a long time, are just a better plan, right? Last minute, if you are going to move stuff around, one could think about, you don't even need to, like, there's so many layers. This is where you need to talk to your financial advisor, because then you're just getting in, like, yes, you can just move it from the parent's account or from the kid's account into the parent's, and then you put it back into the child's account, you know. But are you going to be need-based? That's where it comes down to. Do you need to do that? You may not need to do that. Because if you make more than X, it doesn't matter, because you're not going to find yourself need-based at all. So why go through all of this? Because this does not move the needle that much. None of this does. Really, what moves the needle is merit. 100%. This is what your children have been working so hard for. They've been studying for that. They've been taking their ACTs for that. They've been doing extracurriculars, the debate team, on tennis, in a musical instrument. I played cello. I played tennis. I know this is the stuff that we're doing to try to get more merit money at the colleges. So this is where we have control over this as families. So I'm going to talk to you about return of investment, ROI. Where do we spend our time looking for scholarships, right? So the questions up there are basically, is it through the federal government? Are we doing it on Google? Or how are we finding the best scholarships, right? People ask me all the time. It's the #1 question other than how do I find my child's favorite school? It's how do I get a scholarship? So easily, 100%. It is not on Google search. We are getting scholarships because you are looking for schools that needs your child on their campus from a business decision, because that is what the universities are anymore. For sure, U.S. News and World Report, their data, they're gaining stuff like, is your child just a little bit smarter? Does he have this as an extracurricular? That is how they are paying these kids and giving them the scholarships. So the best way to do that is building a right fit list. And so we think of that as the best academic fit, best social fit, and best financial fit. When colleges give out merit money, they give it out in 4-year increments. So that's the best way you can do it, right? Is by choosing a school that's going to pay your child scholarship dollars on top of scholarship dollars. The second best way is truly the scholarships in and of themselves from some of the schools. And so our kids wait to get these scholarship packets from the schools. They come in these big envelopes, right? And it's a TikTok or an Instagram madness. They want everybody to film themselves of ripping up that envelope, right, that says, congrats, you are a bear, a beaver, a duck, or some other woodland creature or apex predator, right? That whole thing is really a big deal for kids. They love to film it. But you know what? They have missed what came in their email first. Why? Because kids don't check their emails, right? I don't know about you guys, but my boys were horrible checking their emails. We didn't even know that FAFSA came to our inbox. I'm like, wow, how come you are not looking at your email? It doesn't come in the mail, right? They just don't open up their emails yet. Now some do, but this is where they start getting better and better and grown up, right? They're starting to grow up. In the college's acceptances, 100%, there is a link that tells you where on the own university you can go to apply for more scholarships. And there is just fewer people applying for those, right? But they're sometimes specific. It's specific for a major, right? It's specific for some reason. But kids miss these. And again, when a college gives out scholarships, it's a 4-year gift that they're giving. Local scholarships are great. My son got a $2,000 scholarship from my husband's employer, which was awesome. But it only lasted 1 year, right? So it's $2,000 divided by 4 years. It's $500. That was nothing compared to the fact that he got a $10,000 scholarship to Auburn, right? Over however many years, right? That's a $40,000 scholarship just because we left the state of Illinois. Our kids go to school in Illinois or a border state 70%. So quite often, if you just go a state or two over, you can build that scholarship package just a little bit higher. Because colleges want a variety on their campus. They want demographically interesting. They want diversity on their campus. So these things are really important when we're thinking about college scholarships. What I do not want you guys to spend time on, 100%, is Google searching scholarships. 10 minutes? Okay. We have, on average, 50 to 80 of those in order to get an average award of $50 or $500. So where do we find scholarships? 100% for sure. Are they giving out merit scholarships? Because a lot of campuses don't. Notre Dame does not. Northwestern, no, they do not give out merit scholarships. They give out need-based. And everyone will say, I know somebody who has a friend that got a scholarship, all full ride to Northwestern. Not for merit, they didn't. Those are just getting in with the good grades. They're not, in general, getting scholarships for those grades. So, currently, this is how colleges are giving out scholarships. This is a really important slide. Demonstrated interest means, have you visited the campus? Please sign up for a tour, because colleges are keeping that data about your kids. And the more that you show interest in them, they're gonna find that you're more interested in the school, so they're gonna maybe take the opportunity to give your child a yes in the acceptance. So this makes sense, right? Because you don't want to just accept everybody that applies if they're also applying to 20 schools, right? So you have to show them that you care about the school. So you can do this these days even on a webinar. You don't have to always go to the campus. Okay, that's a really important thing. A webinar does matter. Now, I don't suggest anybody accepting a school unless you visited, however. It's really important for you to walk around that campus, and it helps if you do that when the kids are on campus, right? So we all have time in the summertime, but do know that sometimes the flavor or the feel of the campus won't be the same as if you take the time during the school year. Oh, these things are very true. Right now, it's still test optional. Very much so. You can use that to your advantage at some schools. We highly recommend taking that test for these kids still, though, for sure. Direct admit into the business school if you get a certain GPA or a certain test score, absolutely. And those direct admits are super important. Essay, also a great opportunity for the kids to explain who they are outside of the data of their grades. This way the campus gets a feel or the college gets a feel about who they are as a student, as an individual, and what their values are. It's so important for them to feel like they know the kids that they're accepting on the campuses. 100%, this is a great option. And we always recommend that those kids do that. Take the time between junior and senior year to work on this in the summertime when they actually have a little bit more time. They get really piled up as seniors, you guys, really piled up. So the more that you can take off their plate before, because application season opens August 1st. So I'm running out of time a little bit. So the FAFSA is changing and it's being simplified, which is really great for us, right? A couple of things that are changing, however, is if you have more than one student in college at the same time, we used to be able to split that EFC outcome. That's no longer going to be able to do that as of next year, So you guys, I think we all decided everybody was junior. Everybody who's a junior parent and below, you're all going to be having the easier FAFSA to do, which is great. So tip number 2, figure out what the current landscape is all about, right? Many schools are able to do test optional. So how do we figure out if we should be test optional at one school or another, right? It's by taking and seeing what the average SAT or ACT the year before was. And then submit it if you're right about that level, like 50% level. If you're too much below, don't. Go test optional or take that test again, right? Maximize those tour options. Ask the questions of the people on tour, right? Like, why did you like the school? What do you get out of the tour? Who comes and recruits here? How many people get internships? How do you help my child get an internship? Do they have to do that on their own? That's really, really important, right? Because we want them to get a job. So like my son just ended up going through 3 weeks worth of interviews at the Kelley School of Business and just got an internship all the way from next summer at one of the big accounting firms in Chicago. He is thrilled. And then another employer is sending him out to New York, and they're paying for it, right? So like, how do you get those opportunities? That's what you want to ask on these tours. What are you going to do for us, right, to help us and help our son get the job? Another tip, for sure, we find that people in general do not have a 4-year strategy for this. So if you have money saved, don't use all that money in the first 2 years. Plan it out over 4 years. Why? Because we're going to take that federal loan first, because that federal loan is the least expensive loan, and our student owns it, right? But definitely plan that out over 4, and tell your students, right? Tell them what their budget is, because we don't want them only applying to reach schools that we can't afford, because that, in the end, leads major disappointment. So find out, do net price calculators on these college websites. You can figure out really good approximation how much these colleges are going to cost. So when I talk about schools that align with your student, this is really important. Many of us have kids that are certain types of learners. Many of us have kids that like a competitive environment. Some of us have kids that want a collaborative learning environment, right? If you find that your child is going to be struggling to get within the opportunities at that campus, it may be better to take that other campus. And I say this because, truly, like you don't want them to sit and struggle at school, right? If there's going to be opportunities for internships and they only going to go to the top 50%, you don't want them to be the bottom 50%. So find out that level that is going to work best for your child, because that's going to suit them the best. When you're looking at whether or not a school will appeal the process, so we get these financial awards. The medium and the smaller size schools, occasionally you can take their financial packages and use them at the other school, right? That's called appealing. That does not work at the big flagship schools, so don't waste your time. But a smaller and a mid-sized school, absolutely that does. So a little bit about College Inside Track. Just like you would hire a realtor or a financial advisor to guide you through the process of something that can be very important, but necessarily you are not an expert on, that is what we do. We worked with 260 kids through the program last year, right? And those kids earned $23 million worth of scholarships. Why? Because we know the schools that do give money for merit. And of those schools, of those kids, 97% of them got in the top 3 schools that they were looking at. Right fit is so important, and getting a little bit of help in that process can be helpful. Because we help kids really navigate the process. We have 12 full-time consultants that have been doing this for years within the industry. So we truly know how to help you through the process, getting that right fit the first time. Again, not every school will let you appeal. Some will, like a University of Illinois, it's just not an option for them. But we love to be that expert and that neutral third party, right? It is so important to get the guidance and know who's getting accepted at this school. What do we need to do at this school? What's the landscape? Is something too hard, right? That's where we fit in. So a little bit here at the end. If you have a sophomore or a junior, this is one of my favorite things that I get to do is I love to talk to the kids and help them through the process. It's a free hour of my time, right? If they have specific questions about what the essay should be, or do their extracurricular matters, or how many AP classes they should be taking, or what schools that they should be applying to, why? I mean, I can help answer those questions, right? It's an hour of my time, no problem. Also, if you are on social media, we do a very good job of highlightable events, and we have these parent webinars where we have for free. So next week, we are doing a webinar with a ACT, SAT test prep person, and we're going to talk to them about the new landscape in that, right? I have information. If anybody wants to attend one of those free webinars, I've got a sheet up here. Happy to do that. And then you might have other people who are people that you care about that are also looking for help. Maybe not everybody has applied to the U.S. system, right? So these processes are confusing. When do we even start the applications? How do we do that process, right? We can talk you through the first steps of that to make it just be a little bit more familiar. And this explains just a little bit more about that free family consultation and helping the kids do the pace and the prioritizing so they're enjoying their senior year and not just filled the September and the October for process. So does anybody have any questions here as we wrap up? Any? The other one? The other? So the long form, in addition to the FAFSA, is the Css Profile. Some schools also have financial forms that you will have to fill out for those individual schools. That's school specific. Pretty much, it's the Fafsa form. That's the typical form that everybody has to fill out. Yeah. And then I'm going to have these forms. If anybody wants to fill out one of these family forms, and then I'm happy to send you my slide deck, or I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. You can fill that out. Does anybody else have any questions?
While you do that, I'll give it to Hudson.
Okay. There you go. Anybody else questions about scholarships, questions about schools and how you apply? Does anybody know how to apply to schools? Do you guys know about the Common App? Common Application? So the Common App is the primary way that people and kids apply to schools. And that opens in August 1st, between junior and the senior year. Okay.
I would invite the father to say a few words. Good?
Okay, oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, hi. Father Malonal is here. Father Malonal, could you come up for a couple of minutes? Come up and say a few words. I wanted to take a minute to thank Heidi King for a wonderful job that she has done. Like I said before, when I was going through this, it was a very, very tough time for me. So this kind of advice definitely helps, and I hope you take advantage of it. Father Malona, please come and...
I know it is too late. Everybody is busy to leave. Anyway, it's Heidi, right? Heidi? What's your name? Heidi? Heidi, right? Thank you for coming here and giving us a class. We know that most of our families are facing challenges when regarding our school programs, selecting careers for our children, and some of our students are very confused to choose where to go or where not to go. So sometimes they are very stressful to find a suitable course. And if they are not going to selecting the right course, they have to pay. They have to be very stressful in their future. So it is very important to know how to guide our children, especially when they are choosing what to study in their next phase. So I think the class was benefited by Heidi giving us information. And then the Lions Club, right? Rotary Club of Niles took initiative to conduct this class, and I appreciate your interest to provide information to the new generation. Thank you very much. Thank you, the Rotary Club, members of the Rotary Club, and resource team, Heidi, to be with us and giving us class. May God bless you.
Thank you, Father Malonal. I know some people had questions about whether the slides can be shared. I checked with her. She said she would be willing to share the slide. So you guys know how to reach out to me. I'll get a copy of the slide, and if you reach out to me, I'll be more than happy to send it to you. Also, I wanted to take 1 minute just to thank, first of all, Heidi for coming. I know that a lot of our kids' parents are here, high school kids, so this will be a great session, and hopefully we can share that. I hope many people listen using the live stream as well. So thank you so much for coming and giving this thing. And I also recommend you guys to take advantage of the 1-hour free consultation, right? So if you're interested, especially if you're in the 11th grade or the 12th grade, it may be a good idea to reach out and get an individual consultation, which will help you in terms of college application process. Thank you so much, Father Malavanal and the St. Mary's Knanaya Catholic Church leadership for helping, giving this facility to host this event. I also would like to thank KVTV. They offer this as a free service. I appreciate that. Saji, thank you so much for coming and helping us with this program. Manoj, appreciate your help with the IT setup. And all the Rotary Club board members who helped me to organize this. And thank you, parents, for coming and listening to this. So hopefully you learned something, and take care. Bye.